So let's talk about one of history's most dramatic stories, the Fall of Tenochtitlan. In 1521, the incredible capital of the Aztec Empire was conquered. Now, the version you've probably heard is pretty simple, right? A few hundred Spanish conquistadors show up and just topple an empire of millions. But the real story? Oh, it's so much more complicated, and honestly, way more incredible than that. Yeah, this was no simple conquest. The fall of Tenochtitlan was really a perfect storm. It was a combination of audacious strategy, critical alliances, a complete political collapse from within, and a devastating invisible killer. So let's dive in and see exactly how this all went down. Okay, so picture this. It's April 1519. A Spanish guy named Hernán Cortés lands on the coast of Mexico with maybe 500 soldiers. But here's the thing. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was totally defying the orders of the governor of Cuba. This was a rogue mission from the very beginning, a massive, high-stakes gamble. Now, this is maybe the most important thing to understand. Cortés did not do this alone. This wasn't just Spain versus the Aztecs. Not even close. It was actually a massive civil war fueled by the Spanish. Cortés led a huge coalition of indigenous states against the Aztec Triple Alliance. Without these native allies, many of whom hated the Aztecs, his little expedition would have been over before it even started. See, Cortés was a master at playing local politics. The Aztec Empire wasn't one big happy family. It was made up of states that were forced to pay tribute, and many of them were just simmering with resentment. Cortés shows up and says, "Hey, side with me, and you won't have to pay tribute anymore." He brilliantly turned the powerful Tlaxcalans, after fighting them at first, into his most loyal and powerful allies. It was a total game changer. So when Cortés finally meets the Aztec Emperor Moctezuma, things get complicated right from the start. We've completely different accounts of what was actually said. You have to imagine it's like a high-stakes game of telephone. The Spanish message had to go through two different translators who were apparently trying their best to soften everything to avoid a war. You can just imagine the massive misunderstandings that caused. So you have this incredibly tense peace in this massive city. The Spanish are technically guests, but everyone knows their potential threat. Something had to give. And, well, it did, in a big, big way. Think about how insane this move was. The Spanish are outnumbered, like hundreds to one, in the middle of the enemy capital. Their big idea for staying safe? They walk into the palace and take the emperor himself hostage. They made him a prisoner in his own home. The sheer audacity is just mind-blowing. Cortés thought he could just control Moctezuma like a puppet and rule the whole empire, but he completely misunderstood Aztec politics. For the Aztecs, an emperor's power came from strength. By giving in to the Spanish, Moctezuma looked weak and his authority just evaporated. The Aztec nobles, even his own family, started turning on him, plotting a real resistance. So the whole city is a powder keg just waiting for a spark. And just as tensions are about to boil over, an event happens that lights the fuse. This was the point of no return. Get this, Cortés has to leave the city to deal with another Spanish army that was sent to arrest him. So he leaves his hot-headed lieutenant, Pedro de Alvarado, in charge. Big mistake. Alvarado gets paranoid, thinks the Aztecs are about to attack, and makes a truly catastrophic call. During a huge religious festival, he orders his men to block the exits of a courtyard and just slaughter the Aztec elite, who were all unarmed. The result was immediate and total. This quote says it all. The massacre didn't prevent a revolt, it caused one. Any tiny chance of a peaceful outcome was gone forever. The city exploded in fury, and any authority Moctezuma had left was completely shattered. So when Cortés finally gets back, he walks into absolute chaos. The tables have completely turned. Now he and his men are the ones trapped, besieged in a palace by a furious city. And soon after, Moctezuma is killed. We don't know for sure how. Some say his own people threw stones at him. Others say the Spanish murdered him. Trapped, running out of food and water, Cortés realizes there's only one option left: a desperate nighttime escape. And what happens next is the stuff of nightmares. They call it La Noche Triste, the night of sorrows. Even the name tells you how bad it was. In the dark, in the pouring rain, the Spanish and their allies try to sneak out of the city across the causeways. But they're spotted. Aztec warriors attack from all sides, on foot and from canoes in the lake. And so many of the soldiers, weighed down by all the gold they just refused to leave behind, fell into the water and drowned. The losses were just staggering. Look at that number. Over 860 Spanish soldiers gone in a single night, not to mention thousands of their native allies. They were utterly broken. This really should have been the end for them. But somehow it wasn't over. On the very brink of being wiped out, the survivors pull off an unbelievable victory. At the Battle of Atumba, the few hundred exhausted Spaniards face this giant Aztec army. It looks like it's all over, until Cortés leads this desperate cavalry charge right at the Aztec commander, kills him, and the whole Aztec army just breaks. It was an incredible win that let them finally limp back to the safety of their allies in Tlaxcala. So, the Spanish had been completely and utterly defeated. By all rights, the invasion should have failed right there. But the war was about to be transformed by two enormous factors: a terrifying plague and a brilliant new strategy. First, Cortés goes back to what he does best: making alliances. He convinces the Tlaxcalans to stick with him, promising revenge and power. Then he goes around systematically conquering or recruiting other towns, building an even bigger indigenous army than he had before. But the other factor, this was the Spaniards' most powerful weapon, and they didn't even know they had it: disease. A smallpox epidemic brought from Europe swept through the native population who had absolutely no immunity. I mean, this account here is just chilling. People were too sick to even move to get food. Nothing could stop it. And the impact was just catastrophic. Some estimates say smallpox killed 40% of the entire population in the Valley of Mexico. 40%. It even killed the new Aztec emperor Cuitlahuac. It didn't just kill warriors, it completely decapitated the Aztec leadership, leaving Tenochtitlan ravaged before the final battle even began. So, while the Aztecs are reeling from this biological apocalypse, Cortés is innovating. He learned a hard lesson during the Night of Sorrows. You can't conquer a city on a lake if you don't control the water. So, he ordered the construction of 13 warships, brigantines, that he could arm with cannons. He was building his own navy, right there in the mountains of Mexico. All right, the stage is set for the final act. Cortés has a massive new army of allies. His enemy city is weakened by plague, and he's got a brand new navy. He was ready for the final assault. And his plan for the siege was just brilliant and brutal. A total stranglehold. He sent 3 divisions to block the 3 main causeways leading into the city. One of their very first moves was to destroy the aqueduct, cutting off the city's freshwater supply. And then Cortés himself commanded his new fleet to control the lake. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. And those ships, they were an absolute game changer. They smashed the Aztec fleets of war canoes to pieces. This gave the coalition total control of the water, allowing their ground troops to slowly, brutally fight their way down the causeways and into the city itself, street by bloody street. The final siege lasted for almost 3 months. It was an absolutely horrific, bloody affair. But when you step back and look at the whole picture, with the city surrounded, its water cut off, its people starving and ravaged by a disease they'd never even seen before, you have to ask yourself, was the fall of Tenochtitlan at this point just a matter of time?